What's interesting about On Planting and also about On Drunkenness is they're both incomplete treatises. And this is one of the
Oh.
great tragedies of studying Philo is that we don't have everything. Probably the 12 volume set I have on my shelf is only about two-thirds of what he wrote. And a
Hmm.
lot of those two-thirds were missing sometimes the end of a treatise, sometimes a piece in the middle. He wrote about 2,000 years ago. So we're missing a
Yeah.
lot, unfortunately. The treatise ends with him switching over to the con arguments. So he gives something like five pro arguments, and then he starts with the con arguments. What's
Hmm.
interesting is right off the bat, he starts refuting the con arguments as soon as he gives them. Right? A little suspicious, right? So
Yeah.
the first one is that they say you wouldn't tell a secret to a drunk man, right? You wouldn't
Hmm.
ask a drunk man to keep a secret, but
Yeah.
you would ask a wise man to keep a secret. Therefore,
Ah.
a wise man is not a drunk man. Uh-huh. He says, but we could use that exact same logic to say that a wise man never sleeps, right? Because I
Hmm.
would never tell a secret to a sleeping man, but I would tell it to a wise man, so it must be a wise man never sleeps. He says, clearly it's fallacious, it's not true, right?
Huh.
That's where the treatise kind of cuts off. So
Hmm.
Colson's one of the editors and translators, at least of this series of Philo. He says
Hmm.
it's usually assumed that Philo goes through a few more of the cons, knocks them off, and then the treatise as a whole ends with a positive view of, will the
Hmm.
wise man get drunk? Answers in the affirmative. He
Hmm.
says, but it is possible that this entire thing is really the pro argument. Meaning even the con arguments that come at the
Ah.
end, which he knocks off,
Yeah.
yeah, are really part of the pro. And it could be that there's an entire another second section where he gives the real con. He says, we just don't know,
Hmm.
right? So it's hard to conclude from this treatise itself how Philo believes at least the philosophers end up. But
Hmm.
I would say the overall thrust of what we have is positive. And again,
Hmm.
the fact that he's including Torah even in this treatise where he said he wasn't,
Hmm.
that even Moshe Rabbeinu says it, etc.,
Yeah.
suggests to me that he has a pretty positive view that at least the wise man who knows how to handle his drinking can get drunk.
Interesting. So
That's on planting.
before we transition into the drunkenness one, so it sounds like he's, really dealing with this in the context of the philosophers who, sort of the Greek philosophers who've come before. How much are we getting a sense that he's similar or different in espousing even just this piece about this wise man can't get drunk piece?
Similar to the philosophical tradition.
You know what? Yeah, so maybe that could be a good test case for how does his philosophy sort of what's the context? How much is he taking on sort of what else is in the intellectual milieu, and how much is he bucking what's out there already?
At least in on planting, which we just finished,
Hmm.
I think the view is very positive, and he's surveying again the philosophers, but you feel there's a lot of Philo in there himself. He's clearly adding and editorializing, so to speak.
Okay.
On drunkenness, where he's actually his goal is to give us, Moshe Rabbeinu's picture of drinking,
Hmm.
it's much more negative overall. But again, we
Hmm.
have a problem because we don't have the complete treatise. He says that Moshe discusses drinking in five different contexts. So one
Hmm.
is foolishness.
Hmm.
Second is insensibility, just becoming out of your wits.
Yeah.
Third is greediness. Fourth is cheerfulness and gladness.
Huh.
And the fifth is nakedness,
Uh-huh.
right? So he says, and he goes through each. Our treatise only deals with the first three. So we don't actually get to see him treat cheerfulness and gladness, which is the most ostensibly positive of the five.